obviously your playoff hopes have taken a big blow in the past 2 games, but there's still a bit of hope.
Yeah, they were still alive in 3, and they're still alive now. So look, I understand why you asked the question, and look, those 3 fixtures together are very, very difficult, right? Away from home against effectively people that normally end up contesting the final. So yeah, it's far from ideal, but we can't control that. That's done. We've got to move on and look at what we can do. So, and that starts, with this weekend.
It's a Welsh derby, you don't need to fire the boys up for this. Dragons, nothing to lose, and you guys everything to gain.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a Welsh derby, and I'm not necessarily underplaying that. That's obviously important. I understand the interest around that, but we've got our sights probably more on qualifying if we can. So it depends on what's important to you, and we're trying to sort of generate a mentality that we want to try, and our first progress, or our next progress if you like, is being competitive and getting yourself into the knockout stages, a bit like in Europe. Whatever contest you're in, first thing was to get there. We got there in Champions Cup the year before. Now we've won a last 16 game. There's progress, and that's the challenge, despite whatever the backdrop may be. And you've heard me say find a way about 1,000,000 times, and that's what we've got to endeavour to try and do. So it just so happens it's a Welsh derby, which adds a bit more spice to it.
We were speaking to Di Flanagan this week, and he says he loves you to bits, but he would love to come down and spoil your party at the weekend.
He said it 2 weeks prior, before they played the Stormers as well. So I saw Di actually at the Vale, and he said he deliberately left Duncan Jones out of that conversation. So he name dropped every other coach, I think, but bar Duncan. So I'm sure they'll have something to do with that. But Di's got his own sort of part of the ship, and that's almost an advert of what we're talking about. He's worried about the Dragons, I'm worried about the Ospreys, but healthy competition gets us where we need to go.
Dragons haven't won in Swansea since Di was a fly half for Ospreys. Do those sort of records mean anything to you, or is it just something that's a nice statistic?
I think it's more for you than us, from our point of view, and it's a bit like the Galactico era here. It's what people reminisce about and what people know and statistics tell you, and it's always nice to try and do first. And as coaches, we're always looking for little emotional drivers and connections and bits and pieces. So ultimately it's the players that decide, that they decide the outcome. We've been probably, as you mentioned, those games, we've been very competitive in our effort and our performance, and sometimes you just get beaten by a consistent effort or a consistent championship team, and we're trying to aspire to be in that bracket, but we've got a long way to go. So these are one of the opportunities. If we can keep accruing more wins and get ourselves further up the table, those things go a long way to fueling the momentum and the ambition of the team.
You've had a really tough block of games recently. How is the squad looking fitness-wise? Any injuries? Any players due back this weekend?
We're actually okay. Actually, we've probably had a large amount of injuries right the way through. We've had a bit of illness in the camp, but hopefully we can shake that off. But it means that selection might shape slightly differently because of an energy concern. But the people that we've had effectively available for the last couple of weeks, we've got available for this.
Your released players list came out this week. A few big names on there. It's not a nice time of the year. Any words to say on those players that are leaving? Yeah,
it's a really difficult time, as you say, and unfortunately professional sport is a cruel master, and I wish every player that moves on to move on to something that they want to do and they're inspired to do, and not out of necessity. But it's a difficult backdrop. We can't take everybody, and things like injury availability, and we don't have many bad eggs around. So from that point of view, it's more around the constraints that we have to work under and what people have done to that point. So yeah, it's a very difficult time, a sensitive time, and I can only see it as the leader of this organisation and thank them for what they've done, and as the fans would do, because when they've been given their opportunity, they'll give their best, and unfortunately you can't take everybody, as I said, for the reasons that we've already talked about.
Yeah, you've re-signed a couple of your young bucks this week as well. I mean, are you happy with how your squad is looking, given your budget restraints going into next season?
Find a way, I think. That's what I talk about. Happy? I don't think you'll ever find a happy coach around budgets and squad. There's always more. But, you know, you just got to try and compare it from one year to the next. And we've got a few holes we still need to fill, and hopefully we can do that with, you know, with people that are competitive and move the squad forward. I'm happy with the signings that we've made so far, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have made them. Yeah, you know, it's all about squeezing everything and being a very frugal but ambitious team, but those two things don't often sit together. So, you know, it's a few hidden gems here and there also helps, and keep backing the youth, you know, which I said I'd do from the start, and those youngsters that we backed from the start are now, you know, Welsh captains and people like that. So and you know, played 100 games, and like Darry Lake's 50th game, you know, and bits and pieces. So now they're more experienced. So you've got to go through that pain to get to the other side.
Great. Well, I wish you luck this weekend. Thanks, Toby.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hi Toby, how are you?
Good, Steph. Thanks. You?
Yeah, good, thanks. Is James Fender approaching fitness?
He's running. He's running now. He's not taken part in any rugby sessions per se, as in, so he's still got a bit to go.
Yeah, obviously he's one player clearly with a lot of potential. You're talking about how Jack and, you know, Dewi sort of and others, you know, they're probably a good sort of role model for some of the younger players. Well, in general, which young players are you really excited by, who you think have got sort of international potential perhaps over the next couple of years?
That's a great question. I think the first thing I would say is your program has to reflect that in order to have the program to allow them to develop, and, you know, at the rate, and, you know, we're probably heavy on development staff by design. So if you look at all of them, actually, all of our staff, our coaching staff, have basically come from a development background, which I think is important. That was by design. So you give those players, because developing players need different things, you know, and frequency and all those sort of stuff. But so hopefully we've got a program. Well, history would suggest that we've got a program that can get the best out of people. In relation to the people themselves, you know, we've talked about the group through, you know, everyone talked about Morgan Morris as being, you know, an Oldham, and, you know, Ruben and people like that, and Rhys Davis, and so we're on to the next band. So you've got, obviously everyone talks about Morgan Morse, who's got great potential, got a lot of work, athletically very good, got some rough edges that are going to need some ironing out, and we're excited about him. I think Dan Edwards is a class player. I think that he's, you know, but again, like all young players, they've got things that they need to work on. I think Luke Davis at 9 has shown some competitive edge and bits and pieces. This is his first sort of hit out of this year, so there's 3 there. James Fender, you talk about. We've got quite a decent type 5 contingent in the under-20s, which we're excited about. And the challenge is about keep filling the bottom of the pyramid, develop them, and then obviously get them into a situation where they can take over from the incumbent people. It's a bit like the Nicky Smith scenario. So Nicky Smith, obviously a very, very good player for us. Disappointed to lose him. We've got 2 international losers, but Garen Phillips has definitely got international potential, without doubt, you know. Lou Lloyd is another one of that, who's starting to show, you know, he 12 months ago he wasn't ready. He's gone away, worked on the things that he's done, and now he's in and around it and performed well for us. So everyone talks about the doom and gloom. From a pathway point of view, I actually am quite excited about some of the stuff we've got. The challenge what we've got is getting enough people in at the top of the pyramid to give them the on-field mentorship. I mean, you can imagine what a role Justin Tipperick plays in this team, Adam Beard plays in this team, for example. And, you know, as a result, you know, we are You know, we want to get them there as quick as we can, but you need the infrastructure, you need the people, and they need the raw materials, the talent and the effort. So yeah, we're quite excited, but again, the challenge, as you say, on the backdrop of the resources, financial resources, is you don't want to be dependent on those people, you know, so that's the challenge.
Can I ask you about Ruben Morgan-Williams? Because when people discuss, you know, on social media and stuff, about potential Wales players, he's never really mentioned, but like he's had a lot of rugby, he's been playing quite well, quite consistently well.
Yeah.
You know, I know obviously it's down to Warren Gatland, but do you think he's somebody that doesn't maybe get the credit he deserves externally and could maybe push on and get international honours perhaps?
He's a great competitor. I think I've been a real fan and I've picked him a lot, right, since I've been here. And to be fair, I understand, you know, the keyboard warriors having everyone have an opinion. That's what we love about it. But, you know, the Welsh coaches have asked me about him. So that means actually he's closer than probably what people give him recognition for. So that probably answers your question better than I could.
Yeah, and obviously you bring Kieran Hardy in next season. I think he's Luke Davis's cousin, isn't he? So I'm sure there's a bit of rivalry there. But, you know, that'll be a good... obviously Kieran's a good player, but that'll be some good competition, wouldn't it? And that's what you want in the squad. You want at least three sort of guys who are, you know, desperate to sort of knock the other one over and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the same scenario, Cousins, Gartom and Stephen Thomas, right? So we've got, you know, it's obviously an Ospreys recruitment strategy, it just happens to be. But I think the big thing is what you saw is about competition. Competition drives performance like no other thing, you know. A coach once said to me that players understand three things. That bearing in mind this is a different era, and he said they understand getting picked, getting paid, and getting beasted. That's what they talked about. So the modern game is slightly different to that, but the one thing they care about is being picked for sure. And if you've got a deeper squad, as in what that actually means is not necessarily numbers, but a more consistent capability in positions. You can rotate. It means people stay honest. People need that to know that they have to deliver at a certain level each week. And Ruben, as you say, you know, we had Lukey come in, we had Cam, and we had Rod with some youngsters. Ruben's the best thing I'm going to say about Ruben, that he's maintained a level of performance because of his own self-standards, and he's probably not had as much competition as say in other positions, but that shows me a lot about Ruben. But also it will also help him maintain a level of consistency in how he trains, how he performs, how he develops, because ultimately we just want his talent to decide.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've been the best Welsh region this season. You know, would you expect or hope at least for more players to be in the Welsh squad this summer? Obviously, I suppose the next two games will decide a lot, but I suppose,
Yeah, I want players to fulfil their potential, you know, and obviously to play for Wales is the pinnacle of what we're trying to do here. And look, everyone talks about the numbers. The reason that we didn't have as many numbers is because most of them were on the physio bed. So I'm not worried about the numbers, and I'm not necessarily worried about our contingent. I know people will argue about A versus B and bits and pieces, but if they perform to their best, they give themselves the best chance. If they're fit and healthy in order to do that, they give themselves the best chance. And ultimately, the people that are picking those teams know what they want in those positions, and if that's communicated effectively to them, then then at least they know where they are.
And just finally from me, if you were to make the playoffs, just how much of an achievement would that be? Because when you look at the resources that the Irish teams have, and even the Scottish teams and Benetton as well, probably, it would be some achievement, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I think the resource thing is an interesting one, because people then quote, they go, well, what about the South African money? And it's not about just about money, it's about depth of talent, and there's relative cost of living to different things and bits and pieces. So it's basically about how much competitiveness have you got, through the depth. So I think that, along with and we've had a lot of injuries in for example in the second row in back five and scrums, we've had a lot of injuries this year. I think it would be a huge achievement for us to do that. and we're still with an opportunity to do that with 2 games to go. So that speaks volumes for the players and their attitude and their want to be good. And if you've got that and the effort that requires, then you've always got a chance. But it would be a very good reflection on what the work that's gone on to get them there, because it doesn't happen by accident.